Yo, what's up YouTube? Dirty Dan Gaming coming back with another Rise of Kingdoms video, and today we are talking about the next significant tide. I did miss the Tide of Spring, which is the second tide that you will get in the Tides of War KvK. Really just kind of like a farming tide. I am going to drop a video on that, so don't worry. I'm going to continue this Tides of War guide series going, but this one is quite significant. I feel like there is going to be some very significant changes coming into Rise of Kingdoms in the future due to some of these new game mechanics that we have experienced in Tides of War KvK, specifically in these Zone 5 fights when it comes to the Tide of Unity. Some really amazing functions, and we're going to kind of go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, so bear with me. We might get a little ranty in this video. So without further ado, let's go in and discuss the Tide of Unity for the Tides of War KvK. Enjoy. So, what's up guys? Our Zone 5 fights have concluded. We ended up winning our Zone 5 against the Earth Camp, and our allies, Water Camp, ended up losing on the other side of the map to Fire Camp. I'm going to go in and kind of detail what happened on that side. There's definitely some really cool things and functions in this tide. So, you may be new to the channel and new to this segment, but Tides of War KvK is the newest KvK format available in Rise of Kingdoms. What these tides mean is that every 4 days you are going to, everyone in the KvK is going to obtain a new mechanic or a new buff per se. You're going to have 2 farming buffs really to start out the first 8 days of the KvK, and then you're going to transition into your first battle tide, which is where we are for these Zone 5 fights, which is going to be the Tides of Unity. Really cool mechanics that are taking place within this tide. Tide of Unity is going to read as: during stronghold battles in the Lost Kingdom, you can dispatch standby troops to rallied armies and garrisons. When a combat troop in a rallied army or garrison is defeated, it will automatically be replaced by a standby troop. What is a standby troop? Whenever a combat troop is defeated, it will automatically be replaced by a standby troop. Standby troops will not engage in combat until called up. This is, first off, this is everyone gets this. This is the mechanic and the format of this Tide of Unity and our Zone 5 fights. This is why this could be potentially game changing. I think this is a pioneer event, which leads me to believe that maybe there's going to be some iteration of this in just general KvKs going in the future. Let's take a look exactly of what standby troops are. So if we go on to a flag here, and by the way, I streamed yesterday, card up on the top. I showed a little bit of an example. That's a much shorter stream, so you'll be able to kind of check that out as I kind of go through and detail that. So if we go to a flag here, any structure, stronghold, and you click on it to reinforce, you are going to see combat troops and standby troops. The only caveat here, which it kind of details, is only tier 5 units can be added to standby troops. So I believe if we want to go over here, that's my standby tab, go to T4, only tier 5 units can be added as a standby troop. Now if I go over here, since there's nothing in the combat sector, let's go see and what happens if I go to click onto, so you can see my Nevsky here is a full T5 marching into standby. Now he's in, and he automatically gets placed into the combat zone of the structure, simply because there's no one in the combat zone. Now, when there is a proper garrison, proper troops in this flag, you will see your T5 troops simply chill in the standby troops area. Why is this significant? Well, have you guys ever heard of an hour-long flag rally? Very rarely will you see that. We had one really astounding report the other day, which lasted over an hour in one flag, and that is due to the standby troops. So if we go over here, Captain Jurgen, and there was a bunch of other garrison swaps in here, I believe. Imperator fucking Rick from 2134 side was hopping in at times. Captain Jurgen was hopping in. We were using a Gorgo garrison. So if you go over here, battle, first off, if you check out the time, you can see 1 hour long, hour and 8 minutes to be exact. Then you go over to the battle data, look how many deads and troops are stuffed into this flag. Quite astounding. I don't think you really get to that point with normal flag battles, and this is because of the standby troop function. I actually came up and swarmed this tree call, which, you know, is a big no-no, but at times I will do it. I saw the red health bar and I was like, you know what, let's go for it. Let's try and get this thing off of our flag. And it hurt quite a bit because little did I know that when you do rally a structure, or when you rally a structure as well, when you open up the rally tab, you're also going to see the separation of combat troops and standby troops. Now, when you enter a rally, right, if someone sets a rally and you march to their city as a standby troop, that troop stays within the rally. Same so as if it's in the field, your troops aren't chilling out in the open field. It will go into that rally and it will stay in that standby section. Now, you will notice as the rallies and garrisons are going on, you will notice that the attack icon on your commanders is taking effect. However, you will notice that the health bar is not going down. Only until you see the health bar going down will you know that the combat troop, that your standby troop has now moved into the combat troop section. Now, the way that this kind of works is as soon as the space is available, the next available troop is going to automatically go into the flag for you. This is interesting in a couple regards. Number one, this is almost like a shadow nerf to swarming, right? You have to be a little bit more diligent when swarming. I think you have to scout. You have to pay mind to your scouts, because when you do, I don't have any reports available. I do apologize. It was pretty crazy fighting the other day. But when you go to your scout reports, like you'll see a flag, you'll see your garrison leader, you'll see all the troops listed in here as normal. But then you'll see another dividing bar like this one here, and then you'll see a bunch of other troops in the lower section. Those are going to be standby troops. When I swarmed that rally, it slipped my mind of actual standby troops and what that function was until I scouted the rally, and then I noticed that there was like another like million or so troops in that rally waiting. So even if I'm swarming it down, even if it's at red health, and I think that the rally is a little bit low, as I'm swarming, those troops are just being replaced by the standby troops. So swarming is silently nerfed here. You have to be a little bit more diligent. And also what it does is it deters farm filling, because you can only have T5 troops on standby. Now there's going to be some people who have sub accounts or quite large farms that they can actually use for standby, but I think that's a very small population of the Rise of Kingdoms community. I believe with the combination of domains and trying to limit the amount of farm usage from that update alone, and then in conjunction with this standby troop function, we could see this become a general mechanic of KvKs in the future. We know that there's a somewhat massive overhaul coming to Rise of Kingdoms in the summer. I believe they're doing a huge graphics overhaul. So what is stopping them from doing a mechanics overhaul too? So I think that with these standby troops, that the amount that you can have within a flag or a rally is a little much. I think with this, you can have about 30 million troops, roughly or so, 30 million plus within these flags and or rallies. So I think that that amount might be a little high. Probably not for an Imperium Kingdom. They'll probably have that thing loaded. But I think that maybe they reduced that a little bit, but it was very refreshing. I'll just leave it at that. So I think with this function alone, you're going to see some interesting changes coming to Rise of Kingdoms in the future. They're already addressing the farm problem with domains, as I've mentioned before, and I think this is another step in that direction where they're trying to deter kingdoms from winning KvKs through farm accounts, right? So that's the major portion of the Tide of Unity. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'm really curious on what everyone else thinks. From what I saw on my stream yesterday, anyone else that is in Tides of War KvK right now and is in this portion of Tides of Unity, everyone had really good things to say about it. The only negative is that we were discussing and saying that maybe they could reduce the troop amount and the capacities in there is a little bit too much, but everyone else had pretty good reviews on it. Again, I think just because it's so fresh and it's new, and it's something that we just have to adapt to and learn and further strategize against. Now, mind you, this is just for the Tide of Unity. So if we go into the Tides menu here and we go into overview, you can see all of the tides that you're going to have access to in these Tides of War KvKs. So Tides of Unity is probably going to pop up again. We're not sure when it's going to pop up, but subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, because we are going to be keeping up to date on the timeline and the progression of when these tides and these fights are going to be occurring. Now, the other really interesting part about this tide is the directives. So as I described in my other videos, Alliance directives are pretty much going to be buffs that you're going to acquire that your Alliance leaders can use when they see fit. So I'm going to start off here with Master Mason, because this totally changes the opening moves that are typical within a KvK. So with Master Mason, you are going to be able to build an Alliance fort in pretty much 1 hour. This is crucial because the zones in Tides of War are much, much larger. So if we go and check out Zone 5 here, you can see just what I'm saying. Like, so this is the midpoint where all of our fighting started. That's usually where your fort drops are going to land. And I counted roughly here, this is going to be about 18 flags to get up to your midway point. Even with skillful, like maybe the best of the best kingdoms with building teams and all that stuff, maybe they can push up to the 18, but we didn't get there. It took us quite some time to finally connect up to our fort and all of our territory up here. Our fort was done before we can even reach with flags, is the point that I'm trying to make. Why this is huge, and I'm going to flip over to the Fireside and give them another shout out. Huge shout out to Fireside, CPLW, and big braining this Alliance directive. What they did is they dropped their fort, used Master Mason. They did not flag out. They did not try to flag out up into the mid zone. So they saved their Skillful Craftsmen. So what they did is when this fort was done, they popped Skillful Craftsmen, and next thing you know, this entire area is now disrupted because there's so much territory that was unexpected by water. It was unexpected by everyone, and I'm going out on a limb to say if that same thing happened to us, we kind of probably would have been in a sticky predicament as well and really had to adjust on the fly. So huge props to Fire Camp and using that move. Now, I think this is going to change opening moves in its entirety for Tides of War. Maybe this will be a future mechanic that we also see as well, but I think it's going to require bigger zones. So I think what you're going to see now in the meta from Tides of Wars is people are going to fort drop. They're probably going to slowly build out flags. They're not going to use Skillful right away. And then people are going to pop Skillful Craftsmen as soon as these forts are done to establish as much territory in the middle and kind of protect those forts a little bit more that they possibly can. So that's another really interesting game mechanic that has been added from this Tides of War KvK that just it's a total shakeup from what we are used to in Rise of Kingdoms gameplay. Now, if we go back to the other directives, we're going to have Flaming Out and Standing Tall. Flaming Out is going to allow you to increase the burn speed by up to 200% on all structures. I thought initially when I saw this that it was going to be a targeted structure, whether that be a flag, whether that be a fort, whatever is burning on the enemy side for you, and you use Flaming Out, everything is going to catch a 200% increased burn speed. And you'll notice this, you'll get an icon when you click on a flag, and you'll see an indicator on the burn speed increase, and you'll also see a larger flame animation. It's very clear to see when Flaming Out is being used. And then you can also, it also stalls the enemy from being able to extinguish by 20 minutes. So this is really key if you have a lot of flags burning. Very same thing with Standing Tall. This is going to increase the building durability recovery speed by 100%, and this is going to be effective for all structures as well. So if any fort flags have a lowered durability due to being attacked, you're going to see a glowing green animation, kind of like what you see when you pop Heaven's Grace, kind of in Ark of Osiris. You're going to see a glowing green animation emit from your flags and from your structures, and you'll see them slowly start to recover a little bit faster. I think that these are going to make appearances in future game mechanics. I think these are common buffs that we've seen, whether that's KvK 3 or I believe in King of the Nile, there's some seasonal strategies that will kind of allow you to do something similar. But Master Mason, maybe this is something that we see later in the future that is going to be maybe a permanent game mechanic change, or maybe it's just going to stay map specific. I do think that this Tides of Unity and the standby troops is something that we might see later on. Again, I think this is going to deter the farm filling a little bit further, and kind of just point the game in a more sound direction where it's strategy based. So there's one extra thing I want to add for the Tides. So we finally got access to this Alliance Merit shop. So you can spend your Alliance merits, which you are going to accumulate from severely wounding or killing troops in the field. The only caveat is there's only 10 million resources that you can gather. So 10 million for every 5 million merits really isn't that huge, but I guess if you put it over the span of the 30 days that you're going to have access to, you're going to get around 300 million resources, which I think is pretty good. And this is the Alliance stock that you can pick from. So pretty nice here. 10 million gold, 10 million stone, and the quantities on the merits are going to increase and decrease as well. So this is something that we finally got access to in this portion as well. Last thing with these Tides, and I do apologize, but I didn't realize that these personal directives are going to vary from KvK to KvK. This is very similar to what you see in King of the Nile. Seasonal strategies are not going to be the same for each KvK. Shout out to my buddy HeyJ in Kingdom 2377. They're actually taking place in a Tides of War KvK as well. He sent me a screenshot and they have totally different personal directives than what we have. I think the only one they have that's similar is pulling through. You will have a cap on pulling through as well as close ranks. So 5% of your field troops, severely wounded units will instead be slightly wounded. And then when one of your troops is battling against an enemy troop with 300% more units remaining than itself, the number of severe wounds your troops receive is reduced. These both cap out at 500,000 units. So due to that 500,000 troop unit cap, I opted with going with Triumphant Return because I was potentially going to be garrison captain and wanted to kind of save on some extra troops. I didn't feel that the 500k troops was going to warrant picking one of these. This is going to be my little thing for Lillith. Same thing with healing potions in the first Tide that you get, Tide of Peace. Just increase these a little bit more to make it reasonable. 500,000 units in the grand scheme of a fight, even for a fight that only lasts one day, is nothing. And then even with the healing potions, like 60k T5 troops to heal is pennies to even free-to-play players. So just increase those a little bit, please, Lord. So all in all, I'm really happy with Tides of War so far. This was very nice to get nice strategic twists within a KvK mode. So with that, I think that's pretty much it. For anyone that is taking part in a Tides of War KvK, if I missed anything for this Tide, please leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on Tides of War so far if you are partaking in it. And also let me know if there's anything else that you guys want to see from Tides of War, whether that's directive breakdowns or anything of the sort. I must say this real quick, that from a regular player perspective, this Tides of War does not change all that much. This really is more of a leadership, strategic, general thing. People who are war planning, this is going to affect them more so than regular players. So leadership, put on your thinking caps because it's going to get fun and creative for you in these Tides of War KvKs. If you guys enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, consider subscribing. We'll have more Tides of War content coming to you soon. I believe our next fights aren't going to be for about a week or so. We're going to have ruins opening up. Zone 6s are going to be opening as well. So stay tuned. Thank y'all so much for the support. I love y'all. Have a good weekend. I'm out. Take care. Peace.